Hi, everyone, and welcome back to The Things We Know. I'm Lisa Callahan, and I am so excited to be back with just you, Kari.
Aw,
And again, I mean, March was fantastic. Those three women,
amazing.
oh my God, so good. And I love interviewing people. But between February and March, we interviewed a lot of people, and I really just want two broads talking,
Okay, that's our thing.
right? I love
Yeah,
it.
so I'm Kari Warren, and I agree. I'm all about this topic today too. So I love that it's just the two of us,
Yeah,
chatting about it. Because we were originally going to call this episode, um, we were going to call it, apologies and hard conversations. And I think separating those out is important because those are two different things. Hard
totally.
conversations don't necessarily need to be about apologies, but as women, we sometimes kind of go into hard conversations with apology or we avoid them. So that's a
Mm.
whole other episode. And I think we just want to focus on apologies. I mean, just as grown-ups, as partners, as professionals, and definitely as parents. I mean, this comes up for me all the time when I'm listening to things going, no, gee. And
Yeah,
I send articles to my family about that.
that's so funny. Well, and I think we actually came up with it. I'm kind of surprised it's taken us this long to get to this because
Yeah.
I think we talked about this when we had our episode in season one called Sorry, Not Sorry,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Because you're right. I think that's it's an interesting point that when women start hard conversations, or even when we're having hard conversations, we tend to do a lot of like, I'm sorry, but I'm so well, no, no, no. So I'm sorry when when you're as a verbal tick, essentially is different than a heartfelt apology. And what we want to do today is really talk about how to apologize because absolutely you can get it wrong. I know I have gotten it wrong in my 54 years for sure.
Ugh, yeah. And yeah, I'll get to that in a second on me myself. I think understanding and mastering the art of a good apology, it's not just about mending something in a relationship. It's seriously a critical skill because if you can do obviously anyone could argue it's most important in your personal relationships, but I really think it's gonna help you grow in your professional development, especially for leaders. Really, like that, just the amount of experiences I've collected in my 55 years professionally of horrible apologies or lacks of apology is stunning.
Oh, no
And I'm
question.
sure, and I include myself. Yeah.
Oh no, yeah, yeah, yeah. No, right. We've both been in leadership.
Yeah.
The way I handle being in leadership now versus in my 30s, I'm
Mhm.
sure is completely different. Yeah, again, we do this almost every time, but like talking about leaders and their public apologies could be its own episode.
Yeah.
Um, but
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, there might even be courses on that in college. I don't know.
I
I,
know.
I think it would be important. It could be valuable because I
Yeah.
think the art of a good apology, and the way we do one thing's the way we do everything, as we've said a million times. If you know how to apologize in your personal life, you probably also know how to apologize. Um, which for me, I think the biggest piece is that's about taking responsibility.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah, no doubt. I mean, yeah, because it can transform conflicts, heal emotional wounds, and restore trust. And those things are important in personal and professional life.
Yeah.
And we're going to do a deeper dive here into the components of a meaningful apology and its significance in both those areas. And also just, I mean, like we just touched on, I think I'm way better because of my coaching training, because of
Mhm.
my just years, I think, well, dare I say maturity? I know, knock on wood, right? I think I'm better than I used to be at apologizing. I still want to be way better. There's times where I'm like, that feels really good the way I just took responsibility,
Yeah.
for that. And I listened to a great podcast that Brene Brown had with Harriet Lerner, and we'll get to that and she's one of my, she wrote The Dance of Anger. And like, I think the name of the book is something like How to Apologize or Why to, I think it'll come to me, but it's a book about apologizing. Anyway, um, I think Brene Brown was saying how she had to take full responsibility for something that was really uncomfortable, but it helped her grow. Like immediately she felt better. So I think it's transforming for somebody to kind of be in those awkward and brave conversations. And I was thinking about it when I was listening to it. I had a recent interaction with someone I love dearly, and you know, I immediately was like, oh, what she wants me to apologize for, I didn't even do. And I was so
Mm,
focused on that that I just almost couldn't wait to get to that part, that I missed the opportunity to listen and go, wow, I'm sorry that you had that experience, and that you know you felt that way with me. I really wish I had done it that way, because instead it was like, I didn't do that, that wasn't me, like it just became this invalidation that I wish I'd handled differently. And luckily we figured that out and got to it, but I didn't handle it right the first or second time, because I was like, you want me to apologize, and I didn't do it. And it was
mm.
this, I don't know if I said it that harshly, but that's probably how it felt. And
Yeah.
so
But can you,
yeah.
I mean, without sharing names, can you talk, can you explain that a little? I think I get you, but that is an interesting conundrum when what you are being sort of asked to apologize for, you didn't actually do. So is there a place, and I'm only thinking about this because while I did not have a recent issue, a friend of ours did, and I was helping her with it. And what she was being sort of, I don't want to say accused because that's not the right word. It was like, no, not only did she not do that, but there's something on the other person's side that feels like she is projecting onto our common friend. And so it's like what we did settle on was her saying something along the lines of, thank you so much for sharing this with me. I'm not sure there's anything I can do to make this better, but I really value your friendship, or that I'm so glad you value our friendship to bring this to me. But there
Right.
was nothing for her to apologize for. So is there a way to share a little more on yours?
I think that those feel different, because I really agree with you on that. Like, I think, like, oh yeah, I've been in a situation like that too, where I
Okay.
was like, oh yeah, I'm glad you brought this to me. This is totally how I saw it. And so that was not at all, you know, um, what was happening for me. But if it felt that way for you, I'm glad you brought it to me. And I want you
Yeah.
to know that this is where I was coming from. So there was just this acknowledgement, which I feel like could apply in the situation I'm referring to. I wish I had asked more questions instead of
Mm,
immediately going to, that wasn't me. Like, just I
yeah.
think there's justice, and then there's like, healthy relationship too. Like, do you want to be
Yeah.
right, or do you want to be happy? Right.
Mm-hmm.
So justice wise, it's just like, get the fuck out of my face. I didn't do it. So, too bad. Doesn't doesn't address the pain that they're obviously in. Right. And
Right.
so, because it's a relationship that I care about, I feel like I and it's not like I wish I apologized. I wish I acknowledged
Mm,
what they experienced, asked some questions, and then
mm,
asked, can I tell you what actually I think happened? And I wish I had kind of done that a little more gently.
gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And I think in the end we're closer and better for it. But yeah.
Well, and I think that's one of the things to remember as you go through. And again, this is sort of partially a hard conversation slash an apology. It might not feel great in the moment. I personally love to take responsibility. I think Brene's exactly right. Every time, I have a situation where even if even if we're both in the wrong, right? And I don't get I don't it's not reciprocated back to me, an apology. I really do value taking a step back and going, okay, here was my part in that, and I am taking full responsibility for that. And it is like it's like forgiveness, right? It literally lightens the load. I immediately feel better when I acknowledge this was my part in that, and I am so sorry, and I will do better the next time, or this will never happen again, or whatever it might be. um my
Yeah.
54-year-old brain lost what I was going to say about that. But it's so I do think, it's a hard conversations that probably involve an apology. I do think you can, this is where I was going with that. I do think can actually not only repair, but strengthen a relationship.
Yeah. I think repair is key. And we've talked about this quite a bit when we're talking about parenting is we're all gonna screw up. We're all gonna hurt each other, especially the people we care about the most. So it is, and we're gonna get into that. Like, what is the anatomy of a good apology, and what are the things that really completely negate it, void it? Because the repair is the key, right? And it's the
Yeah.
I wish I had done that differently. Showing remorse has so much value in
Yeah.
rebuilding trust and repairing something. So yeah. Anyway,
Yeah.
we'll
So
get.
when I think about my history with apologies, I mean, I can only I feel good about how I show up in the world in that area now. Could we always do better? Absolutely. Do I sometimes F it up? No question. Um, but you're right. I mostly think about it with my kids. Sometimes my lovely, lovely daughter pushes me to a brink where I literally lose my shit. It happened a couple of weeks ago. And when I sleep on it, and that might be my manifest or human design, but when I sleep on it and wake up, I often immediately say, "What when I said this, I was wrong. I am so sorry." You know, I have no qualms about apologizing to my kids because I think it does model for them what that looks like, and I know for sure Liam is much better at it. I think Charlotte still has some growth there. But I can imagine when I was their age or in my 20s or my 30s, and somebody, even if I had done it, I could think of a time where somebody accused me of something that I had done, it was minor. And I not only did I like not apologize, I was like, I didn't do that. I totally did.
Mhm.
So that defensiveness, that fear,
Yes.
sometimes that defensiveness comes from a place of fear. I know I sucked at it when I was younger. I do think coaching and maturity
Hmm.
absolutely shifted those things for me. Understanding, because it comes down to active listening, kind of what you were talking
Yes.
about, right? And asking questions and getting clarity. Even if you're
Yeah.
being accused, even if you know what you did, that what they claim is true, getting a little bit more understanding about how it affected them, I think makes for a more valuable
Yeah.
apology.
Yeah. And just listening to you, it makes me realize in my own history, especially in relationships, but like romantic relationships, but I see this professionally is there's some erroneous assumption that we lose power or like legitimacy when we acknowledge something. It's wrong, but I see that like, well, if I
Oh yeah,
apologize, then I'm in the wrong and then I can't be taken in the right or so. I
yeah.
I just think we avoid taking responsibility because we fear losing power, but
And
we've
I feel
lost
just the
power.
opposite. I
Right.
feel
We're
I
so
feel
much more
more
powerful.
empowered when I apologize.
Right. But I'm saying, I think before we learn that, we
Yeah,
assume the opposite is
yeah.
true. Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So you said we were going to look at the components of why it's important to apologize and be clear that it doesn't matter if this came from an accidental wronging, right? Apologies are important, whether it was an accident or not. That is
Super.
very important to make sure you understand.
Mm-hmm.
So the first component, and we've sort of already talked about this, but the first component of a good apology is personal responsibility. To me, that's where the empowerment comes from.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Yeah.
like, I see you, I hear you, you're right. I did this and I will do better. It
Mm-hmm.
is that place of whether it was accidental or intentional. It is a sign of integrity. So when you talk about the loss of power or people assuming they've lost power, I've been with leaders who, everything is a pushback, everything's a deflection, and that is what they lose for me is integrity, no question.
Oh, yeah. Many, many recent leaders. We've seen that.
Yep.
Okay. It's also, I think, the next one is just focusing on empathy over ego, which is kind of what I was getting at too, right? I mean, a genuine apology is driven by a desire to understand and acknowledge how the other person feels rather than an attempt to alleviate personal guilt. And we can
Yes.
see that playing out, and we probably, but whether it's been us or we've been with someone doing that, like, I don't want to feel guilty, so I'm not going to acknowledge this. It's an
Right.
empathetic approach that values the other person's feelings above one's comfort, right? And we'll get into why what you don't say, because it's just stop and like, oh yeah, let me hold space for your pain for a second and understand this. Yeah.
So I have a question because what do you think about because we're coaches and we're used to speaking in a certain way? Have you ever had the experience of the person you are trying to empathize with taking that the wrong way and thinking you are pitying them or being condescending to them?
Hmm. Not coming to mind, but probably. I mean,
Yeah.
gosh, I feel like Griffin will
Mm,
sometimes he'll misunderstand empathy for pity, and I can understand why,
sure,
I
sure.
mean, but no, not like other than that, I bet you something will come to mind later, but that's the first example I can think of.
Yeah. Again, this is just in reference to our mutual friend. But um, okay, so then, trying to deflect or place blame on the wrongdoing, it's really, again, it's not about whether it was intended. Um, Good apologies go beyond accidents, whether
Right.
it's weird because then sometimes I'm like, do I ever intend to hurt someone? I feel like it's always an accidental one.
Right.
And it's still, you still have to take responsibility. If a person is saying, this is how I feel, that's valid. Whether you meant it to happen that way or not, whether you meant that or not, how somebody feels is valid.
It's a
I think
really
we had
good
a whole
point
episode.
to say we don't do it on purpose. However, when we're angry, sometimes we
Mm,
hurt people we're really close to,
yeah,
you
you're
know.
right. All
Yeah.
right. But again, even if it was unintentional, it doesn't exclude you or exclude anyone from apologizing. That's
No.
that's still incredibly important. And
Yeah.
it shows that you value the relationship when you're willing to take responsibility for your piece in it.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. The other thing is good apologies build trust, you
Mm-hmm.
know, through transparency. Acknowledging where you went wrong, it demonstrates honesty and vulnerability, which can foster trust. And that takes a lot of, I think that takes a lot of growth under the belt, right? To be
Yeah.
like, I didn't do this on purpose. However, this is what went wrong and hurt
Yeah.
you. And I wasn't as careful as I could have been, or like
Yeah.
something, right? If that's true. Offering a tangible plan or an action to repair the harm and prevent that reoccurrence also shows commitment to change. It takes responsibility. I didn't do that on purpose, but there's ways I can really think about that and prevent it next time.
Yes. Yeah. I think that's really an important piece. And I think the vulnerability part is I mean, I said fear earlier, but an apology does really require you to be vulnerable. And of course, Brené's the queen of that, but
Mhm.
it's that is definitely something I've gotten more comfortable with as I've gotten older as well, being vulnerable. To me, that's a big piece of an apology.
Absolutely.
So then the final sort of criteria or whatever is, and this is critical. We already said it a couple of times, but apologies seek to repair, not just to express regret. This is
I
oh, I feel like you have some thoughts on that.
do. Sorry. Go ahead and
No,
I'll
no,
add
no.
mine.
No, I mean that's just it, right? Like you're not I guess to me it's like an apology isn't the end. An apology is the beginning, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, I hear you, I see you, I completely get what you're saying. I am so sorry. And here's what I'm gonna do better. Here's how I want to think about this. please tell me if I do it again, because knowing something and not doing it are two totally different things.
It's, I mean, just having a set of siblings that you parent is such a lab for this. So many
Ah,
people thinking saying sorry is like the end of it. Don't bring
right,
it up. I said sorry.
right.
Um, I can't tell you how many times I've said to all four people I live with, sorry means you're gonna do your best to make sure it doesn't happen again. Like I'm so
Mm,
like sorry is just words unless like some effort is demonstrated to not have that happen again. I feel like a broken record on that.
yeah. And if I'm thinking about Charlotte, going back to my example, that is one of those things that I'm not great at, because again, she pushes my button. Of course, by the same token, she has yet to apologize to me. So she's not right. And I'm not doing this to be mean to her. Like, but
Yeah.
as I'm thinking this through and thinking this out loud, she has not taken responsibility for her piece in it, so she keeps doing the same thing. It's really, I don't want to look like I'm vague booking. Like, it's really as simple
Mm-hmm.
as we ask her when we're out of town or not with her to keep her phone on her at all time, and she has more than one time put her phone in her purse, which God is blessed, right? Like, she's not on her phone all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But when we are out with when we are not with her, and we know what she is subject to, as we talked about in Barbie in the Real World, it scares us, me in particular, but Darren too, when we can't get in touch with her. And we have said this to her repeatedly. And she always has an excuse for why she didn't have her phone with her. But then I lose my shit every time, and I'm the one apologizing, and she has yet to apologize. So she's also not making repair. She's not
Right.
changing her ways,
Right.
But then
Yeah.
I'm not changing my ways either. But that's because she's not changing her ways. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah. I'm here to tell you that we've established sometimes there's personality similarities with my oldest, with Peter.
Yes.
And can't tell you how often I was like, this means nothing if it doesn't change. This means nothing. And you know, he's got 5 years on there and it is
Yeah.
totally like there is so much more remorse and repair
Oh,
happening.
good.
So I think it's a maturity thing.
I do feel like once she leaves and gets out, and no pun intended, actually into the semi real world of college and not living here, and I do think that will help some.
If we were recording this like 4 or 5 years ago, I would have been like, and I would just be having this whole my side of the episode just with so much and anger. So good to realize that.
Yeah. Yeah. Growth.
So let's and speaking of that, let's talk about bad apologies.
Ugh.
We don't have time to get into all the ways to mess that up and how certain personality disorders like are, just become really flagged in these cases. Because I think it's important that all people, even the healthiest of people, can fall into these pitfalls of conditional apologies,
Mm.
like apologies that have conditions with them. Psychology Today, I think it was in 2021, outlined 5 really bad ways to apologize, which I'm summarizing here, and you can help me read these. But
Yep.
the first one is phrases like, I'm sorry you feel that way.
Mm.
Place the burden of apology on the recipient's feelings. Like the problem here is how you feel.
Hmm.
We're sorry that this is even a discussion because your feelings suck. Like, I'm sorry about your feelings, rather than I apologize for my actions.
Yeah.
Often feeling dismissive rather than conciliatory. It's just this irritable, obligatory thing to say because you feel that way.
Yeah. It's blaming the victim,
Yeah.
quite frankly.
Right. Right.
Yeah. No. Oh my God. I'm sorry you feel that way. It would make me want to punch somebody in the throat. And I'm certain it's been said to me before. No
Yeah.
question in my mind. This one's good though, too, because this has also happened for sure. But I'm sorry,
Oh.
but I will say I've very recently had this experience, and
Mhm.
it makes me want to kill someone.
Yes.
It is so frustrating because it's like, no, no, no. I'm sorry is a complete sentence.
Yeah.
There's no buts involved. Nope.
Well, we
I'm
had a whole
sorry, but
episode on the word but, and but negates everything that came before it.
yes,
So
snaps.
suddenly it's all about here's my part. I'm sorry,
Hmm.
but I was running late. I'm sorry, but I had this other thing going on. Oh, okay. So then the person you're apologizing to is a nuisance because of what, comes after the but.
Yeah.
Like there's no apology there.
Nope.
There's so many times I've had to stop and go, try that again.
Yeah.
In fact,
Back
as
up.
much as I'm like celebrating Peter's maturity, we definitely had that happen over break where
Mm.
I'm sorry, but I'm not going to apologize because I was doing this in like something
Ah,
that was, or like I apologize for this, but I'm not going to apologize for this part, right? And like justification is like, okay, let's break up these sentences
back
a
up.
little bit, and we had a good discussion about it, and it's not unlike something I might have said at his age, but it
Right.
was, but
Yeah.
it sucked. The other one was like really quick things, kind of like what I was saying, like, oh, son, I'm sorry. Like, sorry.
Right. Oh my God. Yeah.
Tone is everything, facial expression, volume, everything about that is not an apology. It is a making it worse situation. I
No
hurt you,
question.
and now I'm freaking irritated that you want me to apologize.
Right. That you called me on the carpet around it. Yeah.
Mhm.
Sorry. Duh. Centering yourself. Obviously, you and I have gone through a few of these. I've been the other side of
this
these.
this episode might be
Oh,
personal.
yeah, a little bit. I know. Centering yourself. That thing where you're like, um, well, obviously I just suck. Obviously, I'm just a horrible human. Nope, that's not what I said. I said, this is the way you made me feel. All you have to say is, I hear you. I'm so sorry.
Mm.
Again, a complete sentence, but then following it up with woe is me comments. Oh,
I mean, you know exactly what I'm talking about, but the like, this here's my demonstration of it. Here's the injured party, me in the situation because it's my story. But I've seen this happen play out with so many people
oh yeah,
in that really, especially people I coach. But um, this took me a little bit of courage and vulnerability to bring this to you and say, hey, this hurt me, and
yeah,
for your response to be, I'm an ass.
right,
Okay, so what do we do with that? Is all of my, is all of our attention and energy in this little time we have to talk going to be all about how you're not an ass, and I'm
right.
sorry I made you feel that way, and like, that's not how I would respond to that anymore.
No,
But in my younger years, I might
oh
have been like,
sure,
oh God, it's not even worth it if every time this just turns into you hating on you, and that wasn't my point. You're not an ass, but this was an asshole thing you did, you
right,
know. And my husband and I have like really been through that a lot, and he's super aware of it now. But early on, it's like, if I do something wrong, I'm apologizing to you. If you do something wrong and I bring it up, why are we still feeling bad for you? Like, and
right.
how this makes you feel, right?
Yeah,
Like, we sort of skipped how I was feeling.
yeah.
So yeah.
I mean, centering yourself is never a great idea, no matter what the situation is. You and I had this conversation when we were together because, as a coach, there's oftentimes that, as specifically as a business coach, where somebody's sharing with me and something that's going on for them, and I have had the same experience, and so I will sometimes say, I don't want to center myself, but would you like to hear my example? Or I don't want to center myself, but here's what happened to me if this is at all helpful, but just to be like, oh, bitch, please, I did that.
Yes.
Like all of a
Minimize it.
sudden,
Yeah.
yes, yes. Oh my God.
Yeah, and I mean the other part about that too, and you said this, but I want to just reemphasize this, is when you when someone's like, I'm an idiot, or I'm just so stupid, or I'm a screw up, like, you're also absolving. You're absolving them. Like you just said,
Right.
like
Yes.
you're like, I can't be mad at you. You're a screw up.
Yeah. Oh, that's just you.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. Hard pass.
Yeah. And like the fifth thing, which I think is very similar, but there's a version of it I get, the overly sorry. The I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, sorry. Like, it shifts the apology from being concerned about the other person's feelings to dwelling on the apologizer's guilt. It's just uncomfortable. It's
Yeah.
it's uncomfortable. We already established in previous episodes from last year. It's uncomfortable when someone's an over apologizer. Anyway, you just
Yeah.
start to feel bad for them. They just seem so
Pathetic.
ungrounded and pathetic. And then to have it be about that, it's like, I'm just not even going to bring it up this next time because I'm just going to get the, watered down apology.
Yeah. Yeah. That doesn't change. Talk about not repairing. It starts to do the exact opposite.
Yeah.
Oh my God. So yeah, I'm having a lot of thoughts as we're having this conversation for sure. So talk about Harriet Lerner's ingredients for a true apology.
Okay, I did remember the title of the book. It's
Okay,
Why
cool.
Won't You Apologize? I believe it's her latest book. She may have written something since then because I feel like this came out during the pandemic, maybe.
Say it again. The
Why
title.
Won't You Apologize? The
Mm,
name of her book. And she wrote The Dance of Anger, which I think just was pivotal for me. It's one of those books that especially, we've referred to it here, just about why anger is an important emotion for women to not suppress and to, not feel unladylike. So
right.
yeah, so that's what it is. So they emphasize the importance of focusing on one's actions without excuses, making amends, striving for genuine behavioral change, laying the groundwork for sincere apologies that contribute to healing. That sounds so
Mm,
beautiful, right?
that really, really does.
So she has 9 essential ingredients of a true apology. So listen to that. This isn't like examples of, this is 9 ingredients that make a good apology.
So
Not
they
like,
all should be put in.
yes. Thank you. All right. You want to read the first one?
Well, I mean,
We already talked
we
about
said
it.
it in
Yeah.
some ways, but it's still worth it. Again, this is part of a perfect apology cake does not include the word but. But
Excellent.
negates the apology. Period.
Mm-hmm.
End of story. If you and I can imagine, you know, if you're recognizing that this is something you do, you might still do it again, but catch yourself and be like, nope, I'm
Right.
just sorry.
Mm-hmm. I love that. The second thing is it keeps the focus on your actions and not on the other's response. Super important. I am so sorry I cut you off back there. Not, but
Mm,
you were in my lane, or it was hard. You didn't have your blinker on, like none of that. It's just, I am so sorry I cut you off.
yeah.
That's hard to do if you have a lot of feelings and, opinions about it. That's how you do it.
Yeah. The third one is include an offer of reparation or restitution that fits the solution. So I think it
Mm-hmm.
does go back to, I'm so sorry. I I will do better. I'm gonna, especially if you can pick something very specific. I promise I won't fill in the blank to
Next
you
time.
again.
Yes.
Yeah, and please tell me if I do.
Yes. Oh, I like that one too. Um, 4, does not overdo. We already kind of went into that. Doesn't overdo it.
Meaning
Don't.
that I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry.
Yes. Because it begins to become about you.
And
Yeah.
and that made it sound kind of funny, but it's more like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. It's that because
Yes.
again, it's that frustration. Like that's not really an
Right.
apology. That's
Or
just like I'm gonna
skywriting.
say this.
Skywriting.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no. So, yes, do not overdo the apology. It should be authentic and short and sweet. Um, Number 5, a good apology, a true apology doesn't get caught up in who's more to blame or who started it.
Mm-hmm.
We touched base on this as well. Like, oftentimes it takes two to tango, and yet I am apologizing for my piece in it. And I can't make it mean anything about me if the other person doesn't reciprocate. It can be
Mm-hmm.
frustrating, but my apology is not conditional on them reciprocating.
Absolutely. The next one, 6. Good apology requires that you do your best to avoid a repeat performance. This goes back into like saying sorry means it won't happen again, or you'll do your best. And I love how you added, or, if you feel like I do, let me know, right?
Yeah,
Because I don't want to do it.
yeah,
it. It requires you do your best, and doing your best is really setting the intention and making your intention known. Like, I don't want to do that again.
yeah. Actually, it's funny. I was just thinking not that I was necessarily apologizing, but I kind of did a little like blame thing earlier. I said the reason I've stepped over your lines in recent times is because I'm not looking at the script at the end. I'm just sorry I stepped on your lines, Kari. See how that worked?
That's
That was
beautiful.
a
I
true.
feel, yeah, yeah, that's great. I didn't even
It
notice
was just
that
hitting
before.
me. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
I did that. Where I was like, well, the reason I did this was not that there was a blame on you, but it was like I gave an excuse instead of just being like, you're right, I did that. So sorry. Um, oh, this is a good one. and this I think is about, again, goes back to tonality, right? A
Mm,
true apology should not serve to silence.
mm.
So it shouldn't be like, I'm sorry, I said I'm sorry.
I've done that a million times in my life, and I wish to never do that again.
Yes.
I don't remember the last time I did it, but I know for sure I've done it. Oh,
Yeah.
I said I'm sorry.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Oof. That's a good reminder for me. It shouldn't be offered to make you feel better if it risks making the hurt party feel worse. I don't, okay, I'm going to say that again. A good apology shouldn't be offered to make you feel better if it risks making the hurt party feel worse. It reminds me of the quote that I shared with you from Harriet Lerner on that podcast with Brene Brown, which is a bad apology that ends up deepening the original hurt is worse than no apology at all. Right.
Totally.
So
Yeah.
I think that goes into, I'm sorry you feel that way. I'm sorry you're so sensitive. Or I don't know, like, I'm
Mm-hmm.
sorry you can't take a joke. Things like that are just
Sorry, you
ridiculous.
can't take a joke.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a bad one. Yeah, no,
I
again,
don't
going,
feel like I've ever done that. I'm
no, no,
sure.
no, but I've had it done to me. I was
Oh
just
yeah, for
joking.
sure, for
I was
sure.
just joking. Okay. Well, no, I mean, again, going back to our mutual friend, like, when I asked her, when she asked for some feedback, I said, "What is your desired outcome in responding?" And it was, she didn't want to make the situation worse. And there was a million ways, if she did not make it brief, that it could make it worse. And so I knew that was going to be her answer, but I wanted to make sure. And that's why we sort of truncated and came up with a 3-line reflection, let's say, because it
Yeah.
really wasn't an apology. Um,
That's where stepping back comes in. Give yourself a
yeah,
moment to breathe.
yeah, yeah. And then number 9, as an
Hmm.
essential ingredient of a true apology, is do not ask the hurt party to do anything, including forgive. So I'm so sorry. Will you forgive me? They get to decide.
I love that.
Yeah.
That is something I've really tried to help model with my kids so much when they were growing up is first of all, do this can be controversial, but I never ever wanted to force my children to give insincere apologies before they were ready. Like I just was like, if you feel ready to apologize, that might be a good idea here, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
they're not required to forgive you. So
Yep.
practice that. And kind of helping my children role model that with each other, I've noticed has helped them in their friendships and relationships because that's difficult when you get the courage to apologize to not feel like you're getting forgiven right away. It feels like, well, then why'd I bother? You know?
Right, right, right. Yeah.
Um,
Because like
so yeah,
forgiveness, when you give forgiveness, again, it lightens the load for you.
right. Right.
You've
Yeah,
done
but
your part.
we don't force our kids to forgive. Like,
Yeah,
that is a and like you've said many times beautifully, forgiveness is for you, not for them. It's not the gift you give someone else. I mean, I guess it can be. It can be a byproduct, but
sure.
the point is like you can thank someone for apologizing, and that
Hmm.
that can feel like a loving thing to do, but it's tricky when you get into forgiveness.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the vital role that we want to get into and shift because I mean we're talking about what makes a good apology, what makes a bad apology. But like, how does learning how to apologize help you grow in your relationships and in leadership? And I think one of the first ones that we talked about that I want to just expand on briefly is building and maintaining trust. That's why you apologize. That's why in relationships, we talk about staying in the room. You're
Mm,
listening, you're acknowledging, you're taking responsibility where you should, and you're like sharing intentions. Like that's the crux of communication is I've heard you, here's where I need to do better.
hmm.
Um, it's trust is the foundation of strong relationships in any setting. And apologies acknowledge the breaches in the trust. And that acknowledgement is that first step. So for leaders, it's paramount. It shows accountability and models how to take responsibility, fostering a culture of trust with teams and organizations. Wow. As I say that, that just makes me sad when I think of leadership. But when I think of nations going through amnesty hearings, right? Like
Yeah.
saying we fucked up, we
Yeah.
wrong. There's no way we can make this right, but acknowledging it is what we're going to do here publicly and painfully and patiently and
Yeah.
thoroughly. That goes a long way.
Yeah. The next one is part of an apology. What it does and makes you a better person as well as makes your relationships better is it facilitates emotional intelligence.
Mm,
Knowing how to apologize appropriately in a way that's valuable really does require a high degree of emotional intelligence. It really makes you recognize not only acknowledging your own emotions in the situation, but being willing to set your emotions aside and recognize that the other person's emotions and feelings are valid as well.
mm,
You may not even agree with what they're saying, but perception is reality.
mm,
Their experience is valid. And that's hard. But again, for leaders, that really enhances team dynamics. It improves morale. Talk about modeling. If you have a leader who's like, "Yep, I did not handle that correctly, and I am so so sorry, and here's how I will do better in the future. I will communicate better, whatever it might be." That you're modeling that, so your team is going to do it as well, and that is a healthy work environment.
that's so refreshing and motivating and
Oh my
inspiring.
God,
Yeah.
totally.
And I
Yeah.
think about that, like when we think about a lot of what we're talking about right now is in leadership, but I do think of parents too,
Oh
because
yes.
I would say it's probably true of our parents' generation, and maybe not, but definitely my husband and I both felt like we could count on one hand or maybe the one finger, the amount of the apologies we remembered our fathers making for,
Preach.
anything,
Yep.
anything.
Yep.
And so we wanted to do that differently with our
Yeah.
kids. I
Totally.
can't say that about my mom. I feel like because she's around longer and she's grown and we have an adult relationship, she's great at apologies. I don't remember her apologizing or even needing to apologize when we were kids. But
Yeah.
so I just remember thinking that was hard for us as kids, that like we never heard him apologize for stuff, and maybe because he felt like as a young father like that he needed to be
The loss
infallible.
of
I'm
power.
not sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe
Yeah.
he needed to like have that feeling. Like you see that with teachers and coaches, like the ones that will not admit that they mess something up. It's probably because they think they're supposed to have a certain level of, I don't know, perfection or something. But I
Yeah.
have more compassion about it now, but at the time it was like,
I don't think I noticed it when I was younger. But I definitely recognized when I got older that my dad never physically would say, "I'm sorry," or very rarely. But you could tell when he was sorry because he would do something else. And I can't even give an example. But he would do something that was like, that's his version of saying, "I'm sorry." That's his
yeah,
version of acknowledging that he made a mistake,
yeah. Yeah. And also, in fairness to my dad, in his older years when he got more emotional, he definitely would express some regret about certain
Yeah.
things. So like it's not like he didn't have that compassion. It's just I just look at this and I think about like parents of young children. I get that they're afraid to admit sometimes that they messed up because it could be chaos.
Yeah. Yeah.
The other one is it encourages open communication. So when leaders, parents, or just anyone really apologizes sincerely, it's setting a precedence for transparency and open communication, kind of like what you were just saying, that it can encourage team members to speak up about concerns without fear of retribution. This makes me think of something specific in Brendan's work setting, and it leads to more collaborative and innovative environments. I forget, it would be so much more impressive if I could remember. There is an acronym that nurses are empowered with to speak up
Mm.
when they aren't feeling good or safe about what a physician is doing in the
Mm-hmm.
setting of a childbirth. And that's really, really important, that people at every level, if they don't feel comfortable about care, that they have the safety, to call that out, and that like it's in the structure there for people to take responsibility and thank people for that feedback and redirect what they're doing. So it's to promote, just open communication without retribution.
Well, I think you said it earlier. It offers for collaboration
Mm-hmm.
because if you think as a team member, if I say this, I'm going to get like reamed, or, you hold back from sharing. If you think, oh, that's not the route we should go, but I can't tell because my leader is never going to admit that they're doing things wrong. Darren definitely has a team member like that, and it is infuriating. And then consequently, which is a great piggyback to, if you are not able to acknowledge when things are not going the right way, um, you're going to have a hard time having personal and professional growth. If you are always deflecting and never apologizing and never acknowledging your part in whatever's going on, business, relationship wise, you are going to have a hard time growing. You are going to be very stagnant, and you are not going to get promotions.
No, that's so true.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
And then the last one.
Yeah. Sorry. I just got lost in that thought.
Sorry.
Um,
Not sorry.
Learning how to apologize well and take responsibility actually genuinely, I bet you there's a lot of sociological studies on this, but it prevents recurrence. It
Yeah.
really, really decreases the chance of recurrence. A key component of a good apology is the commitment to change behavior and ensure the mistake isn't repeated. This commitment, when fulfilled, can prevent future conflicts and misunderstandings, saving relationships and professional partnerships. So I think that there's just a huge amount of growth that happens there when you've been witnessed. Like, I don't want to do
Yes.
this. Yeah.
Well, it's like that idea of like, well, I won't make that mistake again. If
Right.
you can
Right.
name it and apologize for it, it's like it's embodied in your head. You really
Yeah.
are. It's not that you won't ever make it again, but you're probably, it's much less likely. I bet you're right. I bet there's statistics on that, no question.
It kind of reminds me too of how a coach did this with me, and I do this with people I coach all the time, which is try not to say this is how I am, or this is the kind of thing I do a lot. Try to say in
Yes.
the past, even if it was 5 minutes ago, in the past, I used to mess up in this way, but I am somebody, who's working on really, doing that correctly, or like taking my time before I do it again. Like, it's like the way we talk to ourselves about it really shifts those parts of our brain that are going to move into new habits and growth around acknowledging it, instead of going, I fuck up all the time, or I never remember to do that thing.
I love that because you have told me that before when we've had discussions, and you've been like, I often ask somebody to say, can you say this again in this way? And I just think, like you said, even if it was 5 minutes ago, if you say, in the past, I have been this person, it now draws a line in the sand.
Yep.
I love, love, love that you do that. Your coaching's a little different than the way than the coaching I do. So that's always just been like a little juicy nugget for me. I think the bottom line here is being able to deliver a sincere apology is absolutely essential for healthy relationships. It's the cornerstone of effective leadership. It's the cornerstone of effective parenting. It demonstrates humility. It fosters trust. As you've said before, it facilitates a culture of respect. And think about that. Are those not things you want? Do you
Yeah.
not want to be in a culture of respect? Do you not want to foster trust? Do you not want to have open communication when you're thinking about your families, your relationships, your partnerships, your workplaces? If you can embrace these really good tenets, principles of a good apology, you can not only repair, but as I said earlier, truly, truly strengthen a relationship.
Hmm.
You and I have both, and full transparency, we're not talking about our husbands. I'm sure we've had these experiences with our husbands, but you and I have both had experiences with friendships, where there hasn't been the emotional intelligence, there hasn't been the trust, or the trust has eroded. It's made us walk away, and
Mhm.
that
Painful.
is sad. It is so painful, but at the same time, staying on this lane and making this be such a tenet of who we are as humans has helped us feel more connected. And I certainly think if we could all do this, we would live in a more empathetic society for sure.
Yes. The two words that keep coming to me as you were saying those words, and I actually got chills, is just authenticity and integrity. And that's always what I strive for.
Core
I don't always
values.
get it right. I don't always
Of
get it right,
course.
but that's what I strive for. Martha Beck's book on integrity is so good. And it brings me to that place. Like, this is maybe kind of silly, but in the past, how you can have a word or a sentence or something
Yeah,
for like a
yeah.
goal for the year. Many times I have thought, I just want to move powerfully through the world with ease and grace, right? Just ease and grace. And that to me is not achievable without authenticity, without integrity, and without really taking the time and the care in how you treat people.
No question. I mean, yeah, no question.
Yeah.
So, do we have a song for this
Mm-hmm.
episode?
Well, this is always fun because, a little behind the scenes, we don't always pick the song until we're about ready to record. And
Yeah.
it's kind of funny because there's, as you can imagine, sorry is in a lot of songs, even apology or apologies. So Lisa will probably have fun with that with the posts. But
Yeah.
it's kind of fun that this, in talking about what we wanted to talk about, we came across maybe a lesser known song. If you know the Decemberists, they're fantastic. They're local to Portland.
Oh, see, I didn't realize they're out of Portland.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, yeah, Colin Malloy, the lead singer, is here. His wife's an incredible writer and illustrator. But anyway, the apology song that I didn't remember and didn't know as well is cute because it goes into a whole thing that it sounds like he wrote a song as his apology, which we're not at all saying you should, but bonus points for that,
Right?
especially with us because we're so musical. But bonus points, best apology ever.
Totally.
It's the words that I think represent what we're talking about. So I'm just going to read it through, and probably more lyrics than we usually share, but it's cute.
Yeah.
I'm really sorry, Stephen, but your bicycle's been stolen. I was watching it for you till you came back in the fall. I guess I didn't do such a good job after all. I was feeling really sorry, Stephen, and I spent all morning grieving, and everybody's saying that you'll take the news gracefully. Somehow, I don't think I'll be getting off that easily. I meant her no harm when I left her unlocked outside the Orange Street food farm. I was just running in, didn't think I'd be that long. I came back. See, this does get into too much of an explanation. Just, sorry, Colin, but I came back. But because it's in a song, we're sort of allowing it. He was gone, and all that was there was some bored old dog leashed up to the place where your bicycle had been. I guess we'll never see poor Madeline again. Let this be consolation that all the while you were in England, I treated her with care and respect and gave her lots of love. And I was usually pretty good about locking her up. Where has she gone? Well, I bet she's on the bottom of the French town pond, rudely abused on some Heschner's joyride. I don't even know what a Heschner is. So I wrote you this song in hopes that you'd forgive me, even though it was wrong. Being so careless with a thing so great and taking your poor Madeline away. All right. That is a cute song.
It's a
And
very cute song, but you're right. A lot of explanation, and also I think some supposition about what happened to the bike that is not necessary, because maybe the bike is fine and some lovely little girl is enjoying Madeline. Why does the bike have to be at the bottom of a lake?
it's
That's
true.
so sad.
It's true. He feels bad about not taking better care of it, and writing a song is a nice
It
gift.
is. It is a bonus for sure. Thank you. That was a cute song. I
That's
love it.
cute. Yay. Oh my gosh, I do love this topic. That
Yeah, it
is it.
was juicy.
I know. That's it for this week's episode. And I loved it. I'm going to work really hard on how I apologize, be really aware because I'm far from great at this. So this topic is inspiring me, to recommit to more awareness and be more compassionate in all my roles. So if this episode speaks to you, listeners, please share it with someone you love or someone you think would benefit from listening.
Yeah, maybe you can share it and say, here, I'm so sorry, or blah, 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 and I'd like to share this podcast with you. But as always, please, if you are listening to this, if this is your first time or you've never actually hit follow on Spotify or whatever it is on Apple, please do that so that we always land in your library every Tuesday. We really, really don't want you to miss an episode. We have so many fun things planned for the rest of this year. I know this is only the beginning of April, but we have a lot of really great guests and topics coming up. And I really want to promote following our weekly newsletter, which you can sign up at thethingsweknowpodcast.com. That is where you're going to hear about our retreats that we have coming up. Kari always does a lovely little newsletter. We do not overload you at all. You will not see us in your email box very often, maybe once a week, maybe a little bit more closer to the retreats, but you do not want to miss a thing. We have so much good stuff coming.
Mm.
Until next week, thank you everyone for listening.
So long.
Bye.